Oh, yeah. Once again, 3D Politics Live. Tommy McCay, your verbal Viking, perspicuous plunderer of conversation, right here every Monday, 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. That's right, kids. Tonight we've got an exciting show. The best part, of course, comes up in about a half an hour. I have booked Justin Van Kirk at 7:30 this evening. District 7 City Council candidate running against Lori Dector Wright, and he's got a battle on his hands. She is not only an incumbent, but she's also a sweet Adeline. So let's hope Justin can sing. Anyway, also, we're going to talk a little bit about Dr. Deborah Gist, modeling for the kids. Oh, she triggered me well, as I have an ongoing rage fest with the Tulsa Public Schools. And then we'll really just bore you to death by explaining in detail the definitive, what I call ethics boxes. It's why you can never, ever feel like you won an argument with a progressive socialist. And then also, I do want to just touch on some of the footage. The Mars 4K stuff is just stunning, especially for a kid like me who grew up in the space age. The stuff they're doing on Mars, it's just ready to be built out. I gotta say though, before we get going, today you're not going to see Oldham. He is on assignment, so to speak, like James Bond picking up an Oklahoma Bond girl. That's right. You may remember last week, Lori Gracie joined us and talked about the Drive for 45 rally, and David Oldham was also with us as usual from constitutionalgrounds.com. David Oldham and Lori just hit it off, and from what I understand, the rumor mill has it that I'm like a matchmaker. I don't know. I brought them together on the show. They'll call me a liar. I brought them together on the show, and the next weekend, pow, they eloped, and out they are, wedded bliss. David Oldham and Lori Gracie have just tied the knot. It's probably one of the most exciting things to happen in the last 2 years in 3D politics. So we'll see David Oldham next week. Hopefully he's going to land. He is following around the Walton, Sheriff Walton, who is going. We're going to try to find somebody to talk on the other side of 805. We already talked one side. We're going to try to talk the other, but hopefully Oldham will get somebody out here for that next week. But first, I want to talk about Dr. Gist and the TPS, but before it's horrible what I do. Before I do that, I have a house, and I know they say it's not true, but there's this house I'm renovating in North Tulsa, and here's what I want to know. If you put a roll-off out, like you're going to put a 20 or 30 yard roll off out in your driveway in South Tulsa. If you put your roll off out there, do your neighbors just fill it for you? I mean, is that how it works? I mean, I don't know. It's a private property issue for me. I think they say, the way you treat the lowest among you is the way you judge a country. I say the way you judge each other's private property is a better way to judge it. So, Dr. Gist, Deborah Gist, Tulsa Public Schools. I have been on a rage against them. So I went through high school in the Tulsa Public Schools and 30 days of ninth grade, and it was horrible. My 10th grade counselor told me, you don't need math. You don't need chemistry if you don't want it. I'm like, great. And he didn't tell me, you might as well flunk chemistry and math right here. In high school, you've prepaid for it. You're going to pay for it again in college, which is exactly what I did. So I got really bad counseling from Tulsa Public Schools. My grandmother worked for Tulsa Public Schools for about 40 years, and she was one of the best teachers they ever had. She taught through the segregation period, one of the first teachers to ever go to the North Side to teach those black students. And the Tulsa Public Schools treated her poorly at the end. They did pay her at a time when teachers were paid well, but at the end they forced her to retire at I believe it was 70, and she went on to move to Bahamas and taught for another 5 years. And she was one of the best things they ever had, but they forced her into early retirement, which is why I say Tulsa Public Schools did her wrong. And then my mother taught for the Tulsa Public Schools for 20 years, and I would see my mother go to the store to buy paper. And I would say, why are you buying paper? Is that for you or for the school? Oh, no, it's for school. And I'm like, why, as a teacher, are you buying paper for schoolwork? Well, she taught me that it's easier to just go do it than to requisition for the paper and try to see if you can get it finally handed over to you. Furthermore, they forced the students and parents to bring boxes and boxes of crayons and Kleenex and stuff, which for some reason, I really don't remember exactly how it worked, but my mother had an entire wall filled with Kleenex, boxes of unused Kleenexes that she couldn't get rid of because of something having to do with the Tulsa Public Schools. So there's a real problem, not only in the national and federal involvement in the school, in the local school systems in the states, but specifically in Tulsa Public Schools. They claimed during the teacher walkout that teachers were leaving Oklahoma to go out of state. Actually, when it came down to Tulsa Public Schools, most of the teachers left, or I think a significant number of the Tulsa Public Schools teachers left Tulsa Public Schools and went to Owasso, Jenks, and etc. In the Broken Arrow. They didn't necessarily leave the state, so it wasn't a state versus state issue when it came to Tulsa Public Schools. Tulsa Public Schools is been on the downhill side of success for at least 30 years that I know of personally. I sent my kid, at least, two of my kids went through Tulsa Public Schools until we ran from the beast. We had to run away from the horrible beast. And I knew it was a fraud when we tried to enroll my daughter in Edison over there, and they said, well, you can't even enroll until you sign up for the free lunch program. I'm like, well, we will not qualify for the free lunch program. Oh, you can't even enroll until you sign up for the free lunch program. And actually they call it the free or reduced lunch program, which has always bothered me. I don't know if a kid is so broke they need a price break on a lunch, like a reduced lunch, just give them lunch. Why are we drawing this fine line in between free and reduced? I mean, it's like, if you need 50 cents off a $3 meal, let's just give the kid a meal. It's so ridiculous. But the free and reduced lunch program is where the fraud exists, especially in Tulsa Public Schools, and pretty out throughout the nation is my guess, because the Tulsa Public Schools gets paid by the federal government, not for lunches served, because you thought you were spending your money to feed children. No. Tulsa Public Schools gets paid through the lunch program by pieces of paper sent in. They don't, wow, it's like an earthquake. Pieces of paper sent into the feds is how the schools get paid for lunches, not lunches served. And that's why, even though you know that you don't qualify for the free and or reduced lunch, you fill out the paperwork anyway, because that's what they needed. So what happened was we denied filling out the piece of paper at Union. And they said, well, you can't even enroll. And I said, well, what do we do now? I said, well, call somebody from the education center. Literally had to make a phone call to the Education Service Center at 35th and Mason and 35th or whatever. I'm telling you, this is ridiculous. I had to call the Education Service Center to just get my daughter enrolled in the public school at Edison, because they wouldn't let us pass the first table, which was fill out the lunch piece of paperwork. Well, the Education Service Center said, okay, let him pass. And 3 weeks later, we got a little piece of paper from the school that says, oh, you didn't qualify for the free lunch program because somebody had forged our name and the signature anyway. And it continues to be the same scam every day from every school we've gone to. And so the fact is that if you want to save money in the public schools, you need to look at the fraud and the racketeering that's going on in what they call the free and or reduced lunch. If you're still tuned in, just like I know you are, this is Tommy McCay right here on 3D Politics Live. We're going to talk more about the Tulsa Public Schools with Dr. Gist modeling for the kids in some bizarre fashion. Later at 7:30, we've got Justin Van Kirk, District Number 7 Tulsa City Council candidate running against Lori Decker Wright for District Council 7. I got to tell you, I cannot wait to talk to this guy. I've been chasing him around like the paparazzi to try to get him for about a month. And so he's carved out 30 minutes for us at the bottom of the hour, 7:30. Hey, but first, one of the things I've also noticed is that I love watching this Amy Comey Barrett. She's being confirmed, and they're doing things on Zoom now. So I don't look any worse than Lindsey Graham, if that's saying something. But when they try to share stuff, so I am going to try to share Deborah Gist, and she has. Let's see if this works. There she is. Now, Deborah Gist is the superintendent of Tulsa Public Schools. And let me just hide this from the feed here. You can see here that Deborah Gist, your superintendent, loves and supports you for who you are all day, every day. She's got the traditional rainbow heart gay pride routine going out here, National Coming Out Day. And we all know coming out is a term that talks specifically about those sexual things. That is, coming out doesn't mean I'm coming out Republican or Democrat. Coming out means I'm coming out as gay. And that is essentially the way it all started out. But if you'll notice in the picture here, now Dr. Gist is a beautiful model. She's got lovely, luscious hair with a beautiful accenting earring, but she's modeling a bondage and erotic asphyxiation look with duct tape over her oral cavity. You see the duct tape over her oral cavity, and that is a typical routine in the bondage. This S&M, if you do your research like I have, Dr. Gist is modeling a bondage and erotic asphyxiation. Now, I think it's easy to see asphyxiation because you're covering up one of her blowholes, the thing she breathes through. But the reason I call it erotic is because she herself has brought attention to the sexual connotation by calling it attention to National Coming Out Day. So she's speaking in sexual terms. She's got tape over her mouth, which is at least bondage, and it's asphyxiation, and it's erotic because she brought up the idea of sex with her whole comment here. She's going to love you no matter what one of 16 genders you are. I've asked her specifically on Twitter, how many genders does Tulsa Public School recognize? No answer. She adds, though, also the passive aggressive faux gang signs for accent. You'll notice she has the peace sign in her right hand and a fist in her left hand, which is kind of an interesting passive aggressive love-hate routine where she's presenting a kind of a bizarre metaphor of she loves you for who you are, coming out, which equals sexuality, with a bondage and erotic asphyxiation message. I wonder what her safe word is. That's just me. I probably shouldn't. I tried to get this. I tried to get this out of the way early so wouldn't be too hard to follow. But I got to say, it's sickening to see the children led by such a look. If she doesn't know, if she's so into symbolism and she doesn't know what she's talking about, if she doesn't know the symbolic meaning of the stuff that I can point out, what do you think these children are doing? My God, it's just sickening that she would bind herself up, put up forth a passive aggressive message to the children about coming out. What do you mean, Superintendent Dr. Deborah Giss? Coming out of what? Your coma? That's just me. That's just me. So now we're going to move on to ethics boxes. This is the real exciting portion of the show. We've only got about 10 or 12 minutes before we are going to bring Justin Van Kirk, District Number 7, to save the day and bring us some great content here tonight. But if you've ever wondered how in the world is it that you go through all these gesticulations with your progressive socialist friends, and it never seems like you can win an argument, or it never seems like you can place a blow, because they never do stay in the same place at the same time, because they're never grounded morally is the answer. I mean, essentially, they do a lot of projection, and they transfer their moral obligation that they feel in their mind first to the group like a scapegoat, and then from the group to you personally that you should share in their moral obligation. It's basically a bait and switch. I believe this, which means I think everybody believes this, which means you standing in front of me should believe this. But to get really deep in the woods, past the bait and switch, I came up with this, what I call a recipe for disaster, in response to a libertarian offering of governor. And so when it came down to a real study of trying to argue with the libertarians who have become the kind of the catch-all for anything that drools past a formula into the whatever's left, and so it's not necessarily only libertarian, but progressive socialist. A socialist is one thing. Socialist is bad enough because they want to co-own everything in your pocket. But a progressive socialist is the kind of caustic routine where we're not done co-owning the stuff in your pocket, even though we already co-owned it. We want to co-own more and more and more, and eventually co-own your thoughts. Okay. And so what we all know, and I'm just going to, it's called the ethics boxes. And the bottom line is that, let me just share this. We're going to try again, ethics boxes, and you can just read along with me. So here's how the recipe, I call it, for a liberal disaster. You place your libertarian, and it's all about ethics boxes. Remember, there are two sides to every story. And because progressive socialists are ridiculously unmoored, they not only take up both sides of every issue, they take up both sides of both sides of both sides of every issue. And basically there's about 8 different boxes they can run on either different side, and then come back to forcing you to stay in one box. So the way it goes with this is the definitive actions and the recipe for disaster. You place your libertarian style subjective morality based quasi political position in an extra large non-cognitivist ethics container by claiming that when we judge something as right or wrong, this is neither true or false. Now, you can look all this stuff up. I'm not going to go all the way through it, but what we know about libertarians is, and all progressive socialists, if they have a subjective morality, and everything is quasi-political because it always bleeds over into your personal life, and yet the morality is never based. It's always totally subjective. And the non-cognitivists, they say that any ethics thing that comes up with true, right or wrong is neither true or false. It's just a construct. I'm sure you've heard this. Then step number 2, you press your critics in the recipe for failure. You press your critics against an inflexible Christian virtue ethic by insisting on specific state of heart and mind for your critics' actions, and then demanding sincere altruism. That is, every time, this is really the nut in the first two steps, is the fact that first, the libertarian progressive socialist has total subjective morality to move all around. And then when they criticize you, you're criticized against a Christian virtue ethic. And you've got to do everything according to a sincere altruism. You can't do anything for yourself because, of course, self-interest is greed. Step 3, add 2 heaping scoops of deontological ethics by expecting others to act according to a presumed duty of your own Marxist imagination. Hold critics firmly accountable to this pretense of the people's expectation as projected by your elitist illumination. You'll notice all of your socialist progressive friends, they know so much more. They're illuminated. They're elitist. They're better than you. And they know what people expect. And the fact is, these deontological ethics knows that it's your duty to act according to the Marxist rantings of the imagination of your critic. It's always some people's expectation that they're talking about, and you have a duty to perform for the group. That is deontological ethics, right? And then after simmering in, number 4, after simmering in rich self-admirations, stir in a tablespoon of rule utilitarianism by claiming your critics without a care have broken an unspoken promise to the society. Yeah, rule utilitarianism is a lot like rule consequentialism, except for a little more existentialism. It's all about, what, and you've heard it. I don't want to live in a world where people don't love each other enough to wear a mask. I don't want to exist in a world where that's your rule utilitarianism. Your rule consequentialism is, think about what's going to happen. You could kill your grandparents if you don't wear a mask. It's a very tight line to understand. It's very similar. Rule utilitarianism and rule consequentialism is just the difference of existentialism, all pressed against you with a Christian virtue ethic that is moored to something that you have to stand by, which is why you're pummeled to death by these moron, libertarian, progressive, socialist liberals that continue to bounce through 8 different ethics boxes without ever stopping. Now, finally, step 5, baste your pride liberally. Serve this dish as cold cognitism by claiming that when you talk about right and wrong, you're talking about matters of fact. Here, we've made the total flip-flop from non-cognitism to total cold cognitism. Because, my friends, if you're a Christian and you talk, you're just building a construct of Judeo-Christian blah, blah, blah. But when you're progressive, dirty, socialist progressive talks, he's a cognitivist, and he's talking about matters of fact. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the ethics boxes. You can go back and study it yourself and look it all up. Find out exactly where I'm wrong. I'm sure Blake Barber will let me know what I've done wrong. But we've got about 5 minutes coming up before we're going to bring Justin Van Kirk from District 7 candidate. He is running for City Council, District 7. I live right on the edge between District 6 and District 7. It's a tight line they run. And I got to tell you, I cannot wait to see what he has to say to differentiate himself from the incumbent and Sweet Adeline, Lori Dector Wright. But first, before that, I want to show you something that I am just loving. Let's see what I got. Oh, yeah. Okay. Here we go. This is Mars. And let's just bring this in full screen. I got to say, this is some of the most fantastic stuff I have ever seen. 4K from Mars. Now, I remember I was 2,300 years old when they landed on the moon. Isn't it great how when they talk about Amy Comey Barrett, we've never had such and such before. And it's like, well, we never landed on the moon before. That didn't stop us. Anyway, never let something that never has been before stop you from doing something. Recently, I learned. Of course, everybody knows, yeah, we landed on the moon. But then we're like, oh, yeah, we got rovers on Mars. Did you ever know? Some people might not know this. The Russians landed they had a soft landing on Venus. And what's interesting is that once they discovered what is potential waste product from life form on Venus, Russia came out to say, hey, by the way, Venus is a Russian planet. Russia has claimed Venus like we did the moon because they landed there first. And the public schools, Tulsa Public Schools, never taught me we landed on Venus. I'll tell you that. I'm your Venus. She never taught me we landed on it. What I found out was the vehicle landed, a soft landing on vehicle. The Russian vehicle landed on Venus, soft landing. It lasted just a few minutes before it melted. And yet Russia owns Venus. But what you're looking at here is the 4K footage from Mars. This looks like just this is beautiful and stunning footage. It is amazing that we have been able to land vehicles on Mars, take these pictures that were better than the pictures we had developed in 1969. And I encourage each one of you to go out and check out these amazing footage we're seeing. Jim Bridenstine from Oklahoma has told us we are going to set up base station on the moon, head out to Mars. You have to commit for a couple of years, I understand, because we're only on the same side of the sun every 24 months or something like that. Ladies and gentlemen, lucky you. Justin Van Kirk is in the waiting room. We're going to bring him in right now. He is early, like a fine city councilor should be, but there's no reason for me to go on and on and on about Mars when we've got District 7 to talk about. Let's bring him in and wiggle through the Zoom. There he is. We see him. Justin Van Kirk connecting to audio. I'm so proud that Lindsey Graham had as much trouble with Kamala Harris as I've had all year arguing with Zoom. Let's say count to 10, they said today. Say something so we can hear you.
Hey there. How's it going?
Okay, we have no audio. Let's check your audio. Mute.
All right.
You're live going. That's what I'm saying. Oh, yeah. There you go.
Can you hear me now? How about now?
No, I see you talking, but I can't come in. It looked like you were muted. This is what Lindsey Graham.
How about that? Can you hear me now?
Still.
Let's see.
You should be, I think it's on your end.
Can you hear me? How about now?
You're still muted. I'm seeing on my end, I'm seeing you muted. Hey, this is the way the pros do it, so don't worry about it. I saw Lindsey Graham and Kamala. It was way worse than that. They had an echo. So I'll even, you can even try again if we log you in. Let me make sure.
Yeah, I might have to do this via phone.
Are you on your phone or on laptop?
Yeah, I'm on my phone. I can try
on your phone. You want to try coming back again?
Let's see. Yeah, give me just a second. Yeah.
Try coming again. It's very difficult. If you'll remember from earlier today, as they did the Senate hearings to confirm and advise on the Amy Coney Barrett hearings, it was just like this. It was a train wreck. There you go. Connecting. That looked good. It said you were connecting.
Still nothing, huh? All right, I'm going to head out. I'll be right back.
Okay, he's going to try again. He's going to try to come back. Let me go to my fail safe. Let's hear. Why would we want? Okay, thank God Blake is there. Thank you, Blake. Sincerely. So Blake says, why would we want to go to Mars? Good question. These are all good questions. What is the primary reason, Tom? Answer the question, damn it. Oh, Blake Barber can hear him fine. Okay. That was me. I've yanked my, okay. Thank you. Thank you, Blake Barber. Let's bring him in again. I yanked one of my, I'm working 2 headphones. Oh, wow. Blake Barber saved the day. He might have worked himself a spot. Let's try to bring Justin Van Kirk in again. All right, here we go. All right, let's hold on, see if we can't bring him in again. All right, that was 100% me.
Any better?
Okay, that was all me, Justin. My apologies. Thanks to Blake Barber. Thanks to Blake Barber. He informed me that you were coming through, and I had, through my armular gesticulations, yanked. I'm using 2 headsets to make it work, and I yanked one of them halfway out. Justin, I can hear you now. My apologies. That's me and Lindsey Graham making it all work as roughly as we can. So thank you, Blake Barber. Justin Van Kirk running for Tulsa City Council, District number 7 against Lori Dector Wright. Thank you. I've been chasing you down like the paparazzi for about a month, and you've only got a half hour to spend with us. I appreciate you being here. Tell us, and let's talk about District 7 and what you're running for.
Absolutely. Well, man, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. I know it had been a little hard. I made you work for it, but I'm glad to be here, and I appreciate the chance to get to talk about our platform and, like you said, our district. I'll kind of start you off with my background, my story. I'm a newcomer to the political scene. So I started a business actually in the district a little over 7 years ago with no political aspirations at all, no plans on segueing. It was just purely for business purposes. My wife and I started that together from the ground up. And throughout the years, we were always open to the idea of pursuing other business ventures, keeping the entrepreneur mind open. And last January, I had gotten to the point in our business where I was ready to branch out and try something different. It was pretty well self-sustaining, right? As well as any business could be. As I'm looking at different opportunities and franchises or something to kind of push and stretch myself, the current business I'm in is a car dealership. And it's great. And we found a lot of ways to be different and to kind of break that stigma. But there's still a little bit of something in me that wants to do something more. Something that, you've heard about the why. What is your why? Sometimes it's tough to find that when you're selling a car. And we've been able to get passionate about that, but there's still something in me that says I can do more. Well, fast forward, I have a good friend of mine who's also now my campaign manager. And as we would be working out, he'd keep dropping these nuggets into my ear. Hey, man, you gotta think about this. There's really a need. And the more we pursued and kind of looked into the options of getting involved on the city level, I realized that some things appealed to me that I thought I would never see in politics. And that's the fact that you're running a big multi-million-dollar business, hundreds of millions of dollars. But it's something to where I think we were lacking and still are lacking a lot of basic business fundamentals. And then obviously with our current council, the way it sits, I think we're lacking some of the conservative values. So that's kind of where I started saying, maybe this is something that I could actually leave a footprint. I could make a positive difference. I don't like to do something if I'm not going to be good at it. So that was a big thing for me was, hey, well, sure. People are name dropping everybody and, this guy and that policy, and that's not me. I've been working in my business for the last 7 years. So there was a big hurdle to overcome with myself of saying, hey, is this really something that I can get behind and know I'm going to be good at?
Right,
You know?
right. I let me just interject right there. I ran for mayor 2016, not to toot my own horn, but one of the things it taught me was that you have to self center, and you have to say, okay, well, you have to moor yourself and ground yourself to what it is and who it is you are. It's great that you're out there working what I think is the greatest political system that was ever devised by the founding fathers. So it's great that you're out selling cars. Selling, first of all, is difficult. And selling cars that's really hard. It's got if you probably have seen Used Cars with Kurt Russell. I mean, it's one of the greatest films ever made.
But in the movie The Campaign, I got them
there
both.
you go. So there you go. That's tough anyway, but more about Vancouver. So and also I will say, I mean, and I appreciate where you're coming from. It's not like you had some great vision, but you're of power, but you got something to add to the political mix. And so, how is it that you decided on city council instead of mayor or some other office?
Well, to be quite self-realization,
I guess I fooled myself.
No. More power to you. From what I've seen and followed of you, it looks like you've got what it takes. For me, I'm not there yet. I've got the work ethic. I don't doubt that. I've got a great community around me. But I
just didn't think I could get along with the other counselor. I thought if I could run the orchestra, I'll be fine. But there's no way I'll be diplomatic enough. You're a fine diplomat. I actually started out that as I interrupt again. Your everything I hear about you, your personality and your persona is all positive. Everybody I've talked to about you has a positive report. But go on.
Well, thank you.
I
appreciate that.
You bet. It's just
talked to my wife yet.
Well, she's your worst critic. Trust me.
Well, I
anyway,
appreciate that.
Go on.
That's something that I'm proud of, but I also have to be careful of because I want to make sure and consider everybody's opinion. I want to, obviously, being in sales, you have to learn how to interact, and maybe it's a counselor that disagrees with what I'm on, right? But I think that we can find common ground more than is currently happening on both sides of the aisle. It's something good and bad, as you are obviously aware. It's nonpartisan. That makes it really tough to kind of draw that line for conservatives. Some people would say it's a disadvantage, but we're taking that and saying, hey, just like I would in my business, what is tough for most people over here, if we can learn how to maximize that, maybe that could be our strong point.
Right.
So that's something, we're working with people on both sides of the aisle here. The reality is we're dealing with basic decisions that, generally speaking, should not be that political. That's one of, generally speaking, shouldn't.
Well,
we've
yes.
A contrast to that. When I decided and I announced to run, it was actually last September. COVID wasn't around. The racial tensions weren't the way they were. The policing, it was just getting started into that. And I'm glad I didn't know what was coming, because honestly, I don't know if I would.
Exactly.
I don't know.
We would have lost you. Yeah.
And I can truly say that I feel like I'm called to do this. And it's not because I wanted to do it. But as I decided to be open to the idea, I attended Rhema Bible College, is where I went to school. Mm-hmm. And so there's a lot of believers that are going to sometimes pray for doors to open. And in my personal life, I pray that doors will close, because I'm going to keep walking. I'm going to make a way. I'm going to keep going until a door's closed.
That is sales. I learned that from a guy who used to sell the old Tulsa coupon books. And he said, I can make as much money as I want this week. And I said, how can you do that knowing you don't know who's going to say? Does he make 100 calls, make 10 appointments? And he goes through the list, And so that's stamina. Yeah, I could never suffer the rejection,
It's a real thing. I got used to it with car sales, doing it for long enough that it's second nature to me.
Yeah,
but
that's
now,
tough.
yeah, I've got random haters out there now for politics. Man, I've never even met you.
this guy used to thrive on no's. He loved no because he's like 98, 97, 96. He was just counting down to a sale. It was
Yep,
insane.
that's right.
That's really
one
that's it.
person.
That's impressive. Okay, so real quick, let's kind of focus a little bit. The two big topics, just ramble any way you want. The mask mandate. I know I've touched base with you. You're diplomatically against it, in a way that's diplomatic. You don't hate it like I want you to. And then the BLM thing. One of my real problems with law enforcement is arbitrary enforcement. That is, if it's a law, enforce it. And if it's not, then get off it. So they put the graffiti down the first time and let it ride for a
You mean the artwork?
Well, I didn't paint it. So if I painted it, by God, it's artwork. Anyway, so they put this stuff down and they let it ride, arbitrary enforcement of not taking it off of their enforcement law. And then just here 2 days ago or whatever it was, they come out like, oh, we're going to really beef you down. They just can't. I guess I should be on the positive side. I say maybe GT Bynum has learned he learned his lesson on the first BLM mural. Yep. And he's like, well, I'm not gonna let that happen again for 90 days. So what's your comment on the masks and the BLM? Any way you want to go?
So we'll start off with the masks, and then I'll transition. I'm a little more passionate about the latter of the two.
Great.
With the masks, like we've kind of touched base via message before. I have tried to be politically correct when addressing it. My personal belief, I'm not a fan of it. I've not seen enough statistics and enough data that back that up to be something where the government overreaches. The reason that I'm careful about speaking into it is because you got to understand, like my job position that I'm applying for is to represent the district. Hopefully they understand that comes with my values and my morals. So there will be an opinion on that. Right. But I'm trying to do my best to reach out. And as I'm literally knocking doors saying, hey, how do you feel about this? And the big thing for me is businesses, because that's the background that I have. So I want to be good at what I'm good at. From a large majority, at least in our district, is opposed to it. They're not a fan of it. I feel like the government enforcing that is a big difference from the government suggesting that, right? And I think that there could have been some steps leading up to it that were more of a campaign, maybe promoting and pushing the benefits of it. Or if you're comfortable and you want to, go out, you're allowed to. But to force that onto a citizen and then borderline criminalize them for not having it took it too far for me. But I will say, I think you're right. Not only with the BLM, but with the masks, with the mayor, he's realized that his base was conservatives, was Republicans, and he put that at jeopardy. Now I've met with him a few times, and he's got a heart for the city. I'll say that, and there's a really good chance I'll be working with him in the future, right? So, him and I politely agreed to disagree on that topic, and that's something that I want to be able to bring to the table. Is that I'm not going to be in there causing strife and arguing with everybody. My goal is to be every one of their friends, but at the same time, if you ride the fence too much, you're going to end up with no one behind you eventually. So you've got to have a backbone. And I think in certain areas like that, stand up for what you believe in or what you think is constitutionally right. And then blend that with the voice of your district. And
well, yeah, you're going to want to represent your constituents, and so it's not just about rubber stamping what the mayor says. It's like here is the disagreement. I know Debbie Lynn Robertson from the Citizens Against Mask Mandate, and use the word force was where the real turning point was for you, and her turning point was the mandate. She's like, she clarified this on our show. She's not going to mask. You want to wear a mask all day long, wear a mask, whatever you want, but the mandate, it's kind of like Obamacare, which they argued about today on the hearings, is like, it all is about the mandate is the word. And so when government uses force to make you buy something or wear a mask, then that's the problem.
And where's the top?
Yeah, she's like, we don't care if you wear a mask or not. We're against a mandate. And that sounds like similar to your position.
Well, and just to prove to that, I actually donated 1,000 N95 masks when this first happened.
Wow.
I had access to get them. They were selling for $4 or $5 a pop at the time. You could hardly get them. We
Right.
had an excess through some family that does some sales in that area. So I'm not against encouraging you to be, if you think that's going to help you be safe. The reason I did it was for the churches to be able to safely reopen. And what I consider safe and they do is different, but for their members to feel safe, if I can donate those masks, I'm all for it. But
Right.
like you said, mandating it is a slippery slope, because where does that end? And
Well,
what's mandated next?
And that's great diplomacy. You're helping somebody else make a decision on how they want to be safe. And for me, my whole argument, I'm always fighting to be as stupid as I want to be. I'm not looking for anybody to protect me from me. I can do that. And if I don't, whose fault is that? But my wife's. Boom.
Yeah.
But but I mean, I, as an adult, I waited until I was 18 to become an adult so that I could assess my own risk instead of my parents telling me, right? I mean, when we get to assess our own risk, and as long as the government, whether it's the mayor or Kamala Harris, I mean, I don't need anybody assessing my own risk. If you feel like you need to wear a mask to protect yourself, then do it,
Go for it.
And so what they're doing now is they're trying to transfer. This is what I talked about earlier in the show. Is it's a bait and switch. They project their feelings of obligatory action. They say, I feel a responsibility. And then they transfer it to the group like a scapegoat. And they say, so we should all feel a way. And then when they're standing there talking to you, so you should do what I say. And so they transfer that obligatory notion on to you. So enough of me, on to the BLM. What do you think about that?
Yeah. And just to touch on that real quick, to summarize it, I think that as a culture, we're kind of being trained to have a lack of self-responsibility. And sadly, I think that stems, systemic is a really popular word lately. And I think that is systemic as well, because we're seeing that not just in this area, but we're programmed to be told what to do. And if we're doing something wrong, or if it doesn't work for us, it's not our fault.
Right.
And so, that's where I stand. I think we're kind of in the same area there. Again, I would have boiled down to let's hear feedback from the district. But moving on to the BLM, that to me is a real simple, clear-cut answer. In the beginning, when the attorney said that was illegally on the road, I would have petitioned that day that it's removed. And it's not for a lack of caring for the movement or the people. Personally, I'm not a fan of the organization, the BLM. I don't like what they stand for. I think that it's going to destroy us from the inside out. But a lot of that community that gets behind it doesn't understand that. Right. And so I try to at least say, hey, some of these people, they want to be heard, or they feel like they're not being paid attention to. They're hurt. They've got a reason they feel that way. And I respect that. But I don't respect that organization. And I don't respect you breaking the law and thinking that that's okay. So as soon as you realize that something's illegal, why are you going to draw it out and wait weeks and weeks and weeks, or potentially after an election in this case, that one to me was real aggravating. I like to see the way that it was handled here recently, and the police is already out looking for persons of interest on that. I think we need to set a precedence and say that that's not going to happen in our city. I've had a lot of people reach out that are upset with my opinion on it. The reality is that's the law. And at what point is it okay to break the law? If you have an issue with it,
right,
go change the law. I'm okay with that.
Right.
If you want to find a way to change the law, but right now it's illegal, and my job is to uphold that law. So it's pretty cut and dry.
Now, one of the things that really drew my ire, I didn't intend to bring this up, but you're reminding me, Bynum instructed his staff to draw up the paperwork for the Greenwood Chamber of Commerce to have the original, that first artwork to stay. And my beef on that was, why is it that the elected city official mayor, why is my tax dollars paying staffers to do the paperwork for the Greenwood Chamber of Commerce. If I wanted to paint something on the street, the mayor's staffers wouldn't do the paperwork for me. Yeah. And then what's sickening and ridiculous, like you said, the people don't even know what they're supporting. They all came down on buying them for not wanting to help keep that BLM thing on this thing. Are you kidding me? He had his staffers draw up the paperwork for him. It's ridiculous. Yeah.
And that's the thing. You can't win when you're trying to please everybody. You have to pick something. If you don't stand for something, you fall for everything. So
right.
I think that having a backbone, knowing when to say no, and you're maybe not going to be the most popular, that's something I'm kind of starting to feel free with this. As of right now, I don't have any aspirations to climb the political ladder. The reality is if I'm only in there one term and I'm out, but I did what I was supposed to do, so be it. I never say never, but if I go in there trying to please everybody, I'm not going to do the whole reason I'm doing this is because I feel called to. It's not me, right? I'm supposed to represent the people and do it in a conservative, godly way that I think our city's lacking. And my strong points are going to be bringing business back to our district, focusing in our area, and talking about Bynum using resources for something that shouldn't be a city issue. That's something I try my best to be real clean about this race. But the current incumbent, Lori, she spends her energy and her resources and her time doing things that might be great, but they don't involve our district. Even her nonprofit and her focus and her areas of attention are all outside of our district. And I tell you, when you go to these doorsteps and you talk to people, they feel it. They know that. And so, my goal is going to be to represent our part of town and do my job. And if you want to do something extra on top of that, do it on your own time.
All right. Now if you win, you will be my city councilor. Right now, Lori Dector Wright I live in District 7. And what are you hopefully you have your finger on the pulse of District 7 better than I do. What are the top 3 things in District 7, and how do you differ from Lori Dector Wright on those issues?
So I think a lot of it, as far as how I differ, is going to be being present, like I just said, for the district. So all of her attention and energy is gone to equality factors and to the Whitakers and to all these different things that her nonprofit is focusing on.
Okay.
Not to say that that's wrong.
I got you.
That's not your job, right? So you could have, for me, again, it goes back to what I know. I could hire the best salesman, but if he's not doing sales, then it doesn't matter, right?
Right.
So for me, that's where I would differ. But my areas of focus, as you probably know, District 7 is I believe the largest income producer for the city as far as sales.
You're going to teach me on this. You're going to know way more about District 7 than I do.
22%, roughly, out of 9 districts. It's producing roughly 22%. So wow. It's our home base for, and you know what that does for the people that don't understand, that's your police. That's your roads. That's everything that we're complaining about. We have to have that sales tax. So as a conservative and a Republican, a business owner, I don't like tax. I don't know if any of us like tax, but if we've got it and if we're going to need it to get these things done, let's make sure we protect it and keep it here. So right now we're starting to see the donut effect, and that's something we've got to watch out for.
Man, one of the things I would like, you really sparked me. I wonder, like if it's that much of a hub of the business of the city, I wonder how many different businesses, how many small businesses are in District 7. That would be an interesting thing. And then also, real quickly, I've got very limited time with you. I'll go all night, but you've got to go. What about city has a problem raising revenue because it's majority is sales tax. How do we bridge the gap on online sales and brick and mortar? What's your thoughts in that area?
So that's an area that I think is going to be huge, and I wish I had the answer for you. I don't have it yet.
But just generally visionary, what do you think about how I feel like we have to gain something from sales online, even though I hate taxing it. But I mean, how do we touch it?
At this point, you have to, because everything's going. I sell on Amazon. That's not my business, but I have a side hustle. I sell on there. Everything is purchased online now, and so to think that we're going to sustain our budget off of sales tax, I don't think it's feasible. Now, something that I plan on doing that she's not, and honestly, very few city officials are, Too often you'll hear people saying, oh, well, that's out of my jurisdiction, or that's a state issue, right? Well, we've got to work together. Like right now, our state government, I'm a big fan of it. I think what Stitt has put together there with his whole chamber, we've got a lot of potential. I was able to join him for a meeting the other day, and they're literally advertising in other states to have businesses come to Oklahoma because they know business is bad right now. Those states are not good for business. So we have a local government, a state government that's putting the time and the resources into literally scouting out for new business to come here. It's a huge opportunity that we need to take advantage of as a city and therefore as a district. So for what we can bring to the table, let's focus on that. And then, yes, we need to find some ways to capture some of that online revenue. But we've got potential. We just need to work with other leaders. You know, it's not just to go in on a Wednesday and maybe talk a little bit with the counselor and get out of there. I mean, let's connect, let's collaborate. That's something you mentioned it multiple times. If I can bring something to the table, maybe that's my tact or my political correctness. Well, that's an area where I've connected with a lot of people that she hasn't.
Right. Sometimes it's just about, it's not necessarily winning the day at the table at the time. It's about interjecting an idea into the public discussion. We've got just a couple of minutes left. I want to say something. I want to move to your comments about State Question 805 and just hear what you got to say about it, because it's a hot topic, and I think we're going to talk about it next Monday. But just to let you know, I have reached out to Lori Decker Wright a couple times to come on the show, and I've kind of gotten the standard. She, you know, she's a city. You know, she's incumbent. I'm busy. Can't really. So I'll try to get her on again. I appreciate you bringing her up with some distinction, because that's what the voters need. It's not like I'm trying to pick a fight, but everybody needs to know what are, you know, who cares if we agree? I need to know where are we parting ways and such.
Yeah. Well,
so go ahead.
Let me summarize that. So the main thing is, because people ask, why are you different? So, I mean, obviously, if you want to go outside of the boundaries, I'm a Republican, she's Democrat, right? But within the boundaries of this nonpartisan race, you have to have an ability to connect with people to get things done. As a counselor, we're a bridge from the people to the city, right? I mean, that's our job.
Sounds right. Yeah.
So I need to be able to connect with you, even if we don't agree, and I need to be able to relay that information. Likewise, the businesses of the district. And that's an area where I think she's lacking, and she'll tote it on her literature and say, oh, I've been in business. But you can tell when you go and you sit down with some of these guys that are literally running the city because of the way their businesses impact the city, and you can sit down with them and take a meeting and earn mutual respect. I'm humbled to be able to come into those situations, but there's a certain level of tact and confidence and knowledge that has to be brought to that meeting to be able to gain their support. That's something that I think I can bring to the table that she doesn't.
Well, one of the things that you bring is the integrity of sales as opposed to the disintegrity of a nonprofit. I got a problem with nonprofits.
Yeah.
And then say, oh, yeah, what about the church? I say, okay, then they don't get to be a nonprofit either.
Listen, if you call me having integrity for used cars, I love it. Because
there you go.
You know, people hate on it, but that is my mission.
It's hard.
Different. So,
it's like stand-up comedy. It's very difficult. So State Question 805, and I'll let you go. You got 1 minute.
Yeah. Okay, so this one, I'm not learned enough to get real hard on it. But of the people that I've talked to, I'm not a fan. And the reason being, again, this ties back into what am I passionate about? It's business, public safety, so policing. The communications I've had with the police department and with some big employers in the area, one of them being Quick Trip, right?
Right.
As a dealership, I finance cars. When a customer comes in and they say, I work for Quick Trip, I see dollar signs. That's a good job. That's a good application. That's what we want as a city. It keeps us all spinning. And with an employer like that, it helps all of us.
No kidding.
And so, I mean, it's just real talk. That's what we need, is people like that. And so if I can hear what's going to help their business, that's not just helping them make money. That's helping their employees. That's helping me. That's helping my employees. That's a trickle down effect. And an issue like that 805, it's going to affect their business a lot in a negative way. It's going to put a lot more work on our police department in a negative way. So from my corner, from what I've been hearing, I'm against it. I'm still open to feedback. I'm open to learning more on it. But right now, I'm not a fan of that.
Gotcha. I appreciate your input there. Ladies and gentlemen, Justin Van Kirk, District 7, out there fighting for your vote and doing a good job of it. I appreciate you letting me track you down. Hopefully you'll come back and visit the show again. I appreciate you being on the show and exercising your political right to be out there running for office. Justin, I'm going to send you away now. I appreciate you being on the show. We hope to have you again. Good luck in the upcoming election. All right.
Thanks.
You bet. Thanks for being on. That's right. And I got to also thank Blake Barber, my technical director tonight, telling me, Tom, you moron, you unplugged your headphones. So anyway, we struggled through it just like Lindsey Graham is. Look, it's at least as good as Lindsey Graham. We have knocked it down. Blake, he's still just hating me on the texts. So one day he's going to earn a spot. He's almost there. We're going to bring him on for a Blake Barber spot. Anyway, we'll see you guys next week on 3D Politics Live.